wondering if anybody knows what today is.
Constitution Day.
It is Constitution Day. What are we, 223
For the
years,
years,
I think.
223.
How does that document start?
We the people.
Well, we have a move underfoot to frustrate the will of we the people.
That's right.
We've seen that before. We saw it with Obamacare, where less than 40% of Americans supported the passage of that bill, and yet it was imposed on America. We can see that in other areas too. We can see that with TARP, Troubled Asset Release Plan. Too big to fail. And yet, the crisis of leadership in D.C. passed that through. We can see that in the building support for cap and trade. Cap and trade, yet another complete imposition of the will of D.C. upon the will of we the people. There's a conflict here, and that's why we're engaged in this race, and that's why I appreciate the support that you've shown me in the primary, and I appreciate the support that we're also getting now from Murkowski supporters in the primary, joining together to unify this state, to move it forward, so that we can establish a future for our children. Now, there are issues that divide us as Alaskans, there's no question about it, but the main unifying factor that I think all of us have to be concerned about is the state of this nation. We're headed in the wrong direction. I don't think any common sense Alaskan, any common sense American can deny that. We have right now debt that's staggering. We've heard about it in the primary. You're going to continue to hear about it in the general. That debt was created by what? Crisis of leadership in D.C. The power elites, those that don't want to relinquish power, will stop at nothing to hold that power, continuing to enslave future generations of Americans and putting this state at dramatic risk. Why? Because we were so dependent on the federal dollar. And yet if this nation goes bankrupt, it's the Alaskans that are going to be holding the bag. You know, what we've seen in the history of this nation is every generation has left this nation in a better state than the generation before. We want to continue that great tradition, but we don't have much time to accomplish that. And how are we going to do it? Well, we made that first start here in Alaska with the primary, and we need to continue that in the general. It's by rolling back the federal government, transferring power of the federal government to the states, and bringing about within this state a revival of the resource base so we can move the economic engine of the state forward so that we can make up the gap when the federal government goes bankrupt and so that we can establish a future for our children and our grandchildren. It is not by any means our role to enslave our children's future. It is our role to expand their opportunities. And it requires vision to do that. Business as usual, the politics in D.C. are not going to move the state ahead.
That's good. That's right.
It is a dead-end road. We have to look to the bright future that is lying right beneath our feet, and that is the resource base that our founders of this state depended on when they advocated for statehood. A lot of people fought against it. They said, hey, the state of Alaska can't make it. It's going to be dependent on the federal government. And yet our founders knew differently. Our founders knew that we had the resource base to move the state forward and to lead this nation. And that's the opportunity that I want all of us to join with the Miller campaign. And I want all the former Murkowski supporters to join with the Miller campaign. And I even want, yes, the Democrats to join in this campaign. Because
That's a good word. That's a good word.
Thanks, David. Now, I would like to tell you that there are some quotes from the Senator Stevens that we heard from Lisa Murkowski tonight, and I think that his admonition that he gave earlier this year is instructive. He stated, and I quote, "I believe that this is no time for new programs. It's time to review all existing programs and to cut federal expenditures wherever possible." Wow. He continued. This is earlier this year, Mike. Wow. This is a tough time. Tax bills that they, our children, will inherit because of our nation's current debt are astronomical. Clearly, there's a need for a reconsideration of all that we've done in the past that led to this fantastic level of debt. Well, that debt load threatens the state. There's absolutely no question about it. It threatens all of America. Admiral Mullins, the Chief of Staff, called the #1 national security issue our nation's debt. For us as a state, the concern is that we're looking at impending bankruptcy, and that means a government unable to fund the state. So what do we do in the meantime? Do we stick our heads directly in the sand and pretend it's going to go away? Or do we go in the direction of bold new leadership, which is the constitutional model? And this is our opportunity. You know, we announced on Lexington Concord Day, April 19th. This is a significant day as well, where all Alaskans, under the banner of the Constitution, can join us in moving the state forward for state control over our resource base and over our destiny, not DC's vision of what that destiny should be.
That's good. Power to the people.
It is we the people, and I want to join with everyone, again, all Alaskans that have this vision, all Republicans, obviously, anyone of any partisan stripe, to join in this vision. It's one that Alaskans can join together in to move our state forward, and we can unite in this critical mission. Now, we were hopeful that Senator Murkowski would be as gracious in defeat as she had encouraged me to be. Again, quoting Senator Ted Stevens, he stated, "I do hope that we can avoid electing people who would destroy another Republican in order to bring about personal success."
Oh my goodness. Holy smokes.
I trust the people of Alaska will not become as cynical when yet another politician breaks her word. But for them, my message is simple. I am a conservative, unabashedly, but it is a message of hope for all. It's a message of hope for the state. It's a message of hope for this diverse country. I want to rein in federal spending. I want to end the mandates that have so hobbled our business. There is no small businessman or woman in this state that can disagree with me in saying that the federal government, it seems every time it passes a mandate, restricts business, anti-competitive, hurts us, whether it's small business, whether it's the extractive industries, whether it's anything that formerly America would move itself ahead with. It seems that every step that's taken at the national level holds us back. But we don't just have the natural resource in this state, we have the human resource. There's nobody like Alaskans, nobody.
That's right.
That's why my wife and I moved to this great state 16 years ago, because this state is special, not just because of its wide open spaces, but because of its opportunity, because of its unique status, because it can be, I believe, the engine of America. And we certainly have an opportunity now to lead this nation. There's no doubt about it. This nation is troubled. It is looking for answers. We as Alaskans hold the key, not just at the resource base, but at the human resource base. And I'm counting on that to move this campaign forward. Thank you.
Well,
amen.
yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Good. Good.
Now, this is a press conference, so we'll take some questions. I know that there has been press locally that's been interested in asking questions about what is taking place today. So, if there are any questions?
I guess I'd like you to elaborate on the phone call that you alluded to on the Fairbanks show, where Murkowski left a kind of nasty message around the time of the session. Can you be more clear about what actually took place in the context of that?
I'm not going to further elaborate on it. Frankly, I probably shouldn't have said that. Poor choice of words. I want to move this campaign forward. We're focused on moving ahead the state. We're focused on moving ahead the nation.
And you referenced specifically that this was a reflection of bad character on her part, and you really attacked her character pretty strongly in that show in a different manner than I think you've done here tonight. So do you stand by what you said on that show?
I absolutely stand by when you give your word, you got to keep it. I think this is a character issue. And I think it's a character issue as well.
Yeah. That's right.
Rattle them off for us.
This is an issue of moving the state forward. It's not an issue of keeping power. We see so often in politicians a desire to maintain power. This is not about personal power. It's not about anything other than moving the state forward and ensuring that we have a future. And that's what we're focused on, and I believe Alaskans will join with us in that vision.
We will. We will.
Yeah. And does this, you had also mentioned on that show earlier that this doesn't really change the strategy.
It does not. This is the same message in the general election as it was in the primary. Same message, the same message of hope. Back in the back.
Joe, what's your plan for tomorrow?
We're going to work like we've worked every day of this campaign.
That's right.
Joining with you.